people. It is your good brother, Dr. Professor Butch Ware. So I'm going to say a few words to open the gathering, and then I'm going to pass things to my MC and my CM, our MC for the evening, and my campaign manager, my good brother Jason Call. He's going to introduce our auspicious guest speakers and panelists today. Um, but I just wanted to say a few words to welcome everyone into the room, and then I'll be back around closer to the end of the program for a dialogue with the incredible Lauren Haregi. So what I wanted to say to welcome everyone into the room in this moment is that this is an evening of power building. And the first thing that I wanted to mention is that I wanted to congratulate everyone who made it to this meeting today in virtual form. I don't know what it's like where you are, but if I open this window, I don't want to mess with the backlighting, but if I open this window, it is a beautiful Southern California afternoon out here, and there's a lot of different places that I could be. But I chose to be here trying to build power with the people because I appreciate the gravity of the moment that we're in. And I wanted to send congratulations and gratitude to everybody who joined us in this cipher, joined us in this space, because it means that you have a functioning heart. It means that your heart is aware and awake of the danger that we are in as a collective human family. You are alert to all of the needless suffering and oppression and harm that is reaching your brothers and sisters in humanity in your own community and across the globe. And you are ready to take collective action. Words don't do no more. So I want to first just thank you for carving this space and time out. And I wanted to join you in a moment of connection of the hearts, in a moment of collective solidarity, because the hour is getting late, the time is getting dark, and we are going to need to be able to rely on one another. And that helps frame the intention of this particular evening gathering, politics in service of the people. Um, I'm going to keep the introductory comments brief in this way. One of the things that you are going to find that distinguishes my political campaign for running for governor in the state of California is that I ain't no politician. I've been a public servant, an activist, an organizer, and a teacher for my whole life, for my whole career, and that is not going to change. What I see is that political party organizing is at the core of every successful modern revolutionary movement. And my aim is to turn this political party into a weapon in the hands of the people. My goal is not to come to communities that are suffering and burdened and oppressed and say, this is an issue that is of interest to you. This is my platform where we speak to it. Please vote for us. That's not the plan. The plan is to come to communities of people that are already doing the work on the ground of liberation and offer a political party and a campaign and a voice as a weapon in the liberation struggles of the people that are already doing the work on the ground. When Lauren and I have our dialogue a little bit later on, we're going to dig down deep into some of the details of that. But in that spirit, we've invited representatives from General Strike US to tell us about effective direct action. We've invited Chad Brown from LEAP to talk about reparations. We've invited our Green Party activists on the ground in Alameda County here in the state of California to talk about how to bring together mutual aid, direct action, and political intervention into one uh, single revolutionary package so that we can take our mobilization. And we have all been making these efforts to mobilize against these fundamental injustices that we're facing against the carceral state. We're here as abolitionists against genocide in Gaza and in other places. We are here to get the foot off the necks of our brothers and sisters in Palestine. But we have also seen that, as Kwame Ture taught, revolutionaries don't just mobilize around issues. Revolutionaries organize against systems. This is a night for organizing against systems and for building power together. So with that, I'm going to pass to my good brother and campaign manager, Jason Call, to help set the stage for the rest of the evening.
Unmute. Thanks so much, Butch. And as always, it's a pleasure and an honor to be here with the activist community doing work. But we remember that we cannot move forward in this struggle without the acknowledgement that we are here on the stolen lands of the people who have stewarded this land from time immemorial. On this campaign, we take this mission very seriously. We take the land back and the sovereignty of indigenous people from North America, Turtle Island, extremely seriously, and there is no repair unless those peoples are also repaired and made whole. And it is something that this country has not dealt with, much like it has not dealt with the history of slavery of African people who were transported here. Until those things happen, until those original sins, original crimes are dealt with, we simply cannot move forward in solidarity. So I want to acknowledge that first, and I come to you from the lands of the Coast Salish people here in the Pacific Northwest, a little bit north of Seattle. Having said that, what a great evening today. Some fantastic guests, as Butch has mentioned. I do want to acknowledge first the Alameda County Green Party. We are sort of co-hosting this tonight. Once a month, they do a Green Sunday talk, and because last night we usually do our live streams on a Saturday, but because last night was Passover, we wanted to honor Passover and push it a day backwards, and so it coincided with Alameda County Green's Green Sunday, and we want to acknowledge and thank them for sharing the space with us, and Laura Wells will be here to talk about the work that the Alameda County Greens are doing. As Butch said, this is a moment of how we can change our system to serve people, a system that right now serves capital, it serves corporate overlords, it serves profit, it serves extraction. I had an article just forwarded to me today that's relevant, and it's dated today. How bad is California's housing crisis? A first in the nation bill would let students live in cars. Right? We need a bill to let students live in cars because 1 in 4 students in California does not have a home and cannot afford student housing. That's a crisis. The University of California system is the largest employer in the state of California, yet 1 in 4 students in California does not have a place to live. And the resort that our lawmakers have is that, well, let's go ahead and let them sleep in their cars instead of making sure that they have affordable housing. You know, the solution to the housing crisis is to give people affordable housing, but that message does not get through. So that's just sort of a tip of the iceberg of the crisis we're in. And there are so many crises that we can identify, but right now we want to identify solutions and work that is being done right now that you, the listening audience, and the supporters of the Butch Ware for Governor campaign can get involved with right now. And we're going to have those folks talk about the work that they're doing. So the first people that I want to bring on is something that we here on the left have been shouting about for a long time. And how is this going to happen? And me, as a former union leader, former union worker, I believe strongly in the right to strike. But what we need to do right now is have a collective strike movement that doesn't just last a day. It's not just don't buy, don't shop, don't watch TV for a day. We got to put this on, as the illustrious Saul Williams said at the Santa Barbara conference. We need a 5-day strike, a 10-day strike, a 15-day strike, a strike for as long as it takes to change this system. So with that, I'd like to invite Di or Day. I'm sorry.
No problem. It's Day.
Day, and Eliza, Zoe, but Eliza for today, from General Strike US. Please tell us about the fantastic. People are so excited about the work that you are doing. I know your movement is growing. Tell us about yourselves and how people can get involved.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that introduction. And it's a pleasure to be with you all. We've started in 2022. So we've been in motion for quite some time and kind of just pioneering the way. Like, as we know, a general strike is not, a foreign idea, but to organize it to this extent We understand that it takes a lot of ingredients that will make a tasty recipe for a general strike. We are trying, as you said, to sustain ourselves as long as possible. But my name is Day, and I'm one of the chapter organizers in Detroit.
Hi, everyone. My name's Zoe. I'm chapter organizer for GSUS New Mexico. My story is pretty simple. I am a worker. I've held basically every job from like pizza driver to I was a cartographer for the Bureau of Land Management, and I got laid off due to budget cuts. So I know exactly what's happening in the government right now. And I'm from the Southwest, where the labor history runs really deep. The Empire Zinc strike was historic, and it set a national precedent, and that happened right here in my home county. And we hope to remind people how much power is still hidden here in these hills. I've been an IWW member since 2020, and we have a direct action planned basically every single day from now until the beginning of the general strike. So I've helped to design a roadmap to 11 million with real steps that can be taken on the way to 3.5% of the general population actually refusing their labor. And the most important thing right now is building the infrastructure for that protracted labor movement. Because if you ask me and a lot of the members of my community down here, we're going to need more than 15 days. We're going to need an absolutely Herculean task. So.
So, if I can ask, how many chapters are there across the country right now? Where is General Strike US organizing?
So as of right now, we have a little bit over, I believe, 20 chapters right now. If you follow our link tree, you'll be able to see active general strike chapters in our social media platforms. But we are looking for more volunteers to hop on board and trying to make this process as easy as possible. The goal definitely is to establish chapters in all 50 states, so we can get this interconnected system to sustain ourselves.
Can I also just jump in with a
Yeah.
question? In addition to following the link to sign our strike card, what else can the people that are in the gathering do? And what else can we do as a campaign? Can I do with my social media feed? How can we better be of service in amplifying this work? Because what I've been saying in the community setting for a couple of years now is that building the mutual aid infrastructure that is going to sustain effective strike movement is absolutely key and absolutely crucial. And I want to be able to make sure that I'm living in service of that. People forget how long it took for the Montgomery bus boycott to actually to have its effect. We need to be able to shut these people down for extended periods of time, and that will also build the networks of mutual care and solidarity in our own communities. So in addition to signing a strike card, which everybody needs to do, follow the link, sign your strike card, distribute that through your own networks. How else can we in the gathering and my campaign specifically best be of service?
Absolutely. Oh, go ahead.
Did you want me to take this one?
Yeah,
I'd
I
love
can
to hear from both of y'all, just one at a time.
Okay.
Mhm.
So I would say that besides signing the strike card, probably the most important thing that people can do right now is getting in touch with General Strike so that they can establish a chapter, or getting in touch with their local chapter, because there is organization happening. We are in communication with lots of different organizations who are change oriented, who are really trying to bring about an end to the status quo, and getting involved in terms of the Discord, getting involved in terms of your local community and your local mutual aid, which is happening in it's 27 states as of right now that we have link trees for. That is probably going to be the most important thing that people can do. April 19th is going to be big, passing out flyers and pamphlets about the general strike. I actually became the chapter organizer just because I made a flyer. I was so passionate about this that I decided I have to make a flyer. I have to tell people, I have to start a meeting in my town. So choosing a place like your local library, your local college, plastering flyers absolutely everywhere and getting that word out, because social media is completely captivated. So I would say word of mouth and good old dead tree media.
You
Right on, Brad. If I can, I just want to
absolutely
follow
go.
up. So a lot of times if you hear us on social media talking about the general strike, we always say we are trying to organize 3.5% of the population engaged in sustained participation. And as we understand what organizing to be is building those long-term sustainable structures to empower our communities. So right there, that's the participation that we're talking about. If you know anything, we pull a lot from the Black Panther Party. I myself, shout out our Black Panther Party chapter in Tacoma, Washington. I organized, they taught me so much. But regardless, Huey P. Newton tells us the people learn by leading by example. The people learn by observation and participation. So that's why we want to incorporate and encourage our chapters to engage in these supporting survival programs, building them brick by brick if we have to, or supporting pre-existing groups, mutual aids, the Panthers that's already doing the work.
And one of the, I'll give a shout out to the Tacoma Panthers also, because I've organized with them, Bunchy and Ovanayu. But I want to note here that Day and Zoe are clearly of the younger generation. So I wanted to ask the interest that is growing for the general strike. Are you finding that's more among young people? Are young people looking for a place to go and organize, and you're finding that that's who's coming to you right now?
Joey, we've been finding a mix. To be
Yeah.
quite honest, it's been beautiful to see. We are encouraging and we are promoting our strength in numbers and diversity, and we are definitely seeing it.
Do you have any other questions, Butch?
No, they laid it out lovely, and I just wanted to salute y'all for your service. And I've said this privately, in correspondence, on DMs and in other places. Consider me at y'all's service. Understanding that social media is a captured environment, but as has always been the case, invite me for collaborations to help extend the reach. And I'm doing everything that I can to try to make sure people sign those strike cards, because it's going to take collective action. And also trying to do some work with the various union organizations, especially those that have been organizing for pro-Palestinian resistance, to get those union orgs online. So looking forward to continuing to build with y'all. All power to the people.
All power to the people. Appreciate you.
Yeah, right back at you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. General Strike US, check out the link tree in the chat. Next, we have from the Lineage Equity and Advancement Project, which is an LA-based community service organization to help the Black community. We have Chad Brown to tell us about his good work and how we can get involved in his organization and how the campaign can support the work that they are doing in LA. Chad?
Yeah, no, thank you, Jason, and good evening, all. My name is Chad Brown. I am the national spokesperson for the Lineage Equity and Advancement Project, or LEAP for short. I just want to start by saying first, Professor Ware, Jason, and to your campaign, thank you for this invitation. I'm very happy to be here. This is a timely topic and one that's very important and here in the state of California and has national and global implications. And that topic is reparations. So the Lineage Equity and Advancement Project, and here I'll share my screen quickly if I'm able to. But the Lineage Equity and Advancement Project was formed in 2019 for the explicit purpose of achieving compensatory reparations for the descendants of persons who were enslaved in the United States. And if you could give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen, that'd be great. Thank you. So that's our explicit purpose. We don't do any other kind of work. We have been working exclusively on reparations since 2019. And so I will quickly run through who we are, what have we done, what are we doing now, what we want you to do, so the calls to action, and then what's next for us in this fight for reparations here in California. So again, Lineage Equity and Advancement Project. We're based out of Los Angeles, but we do national work. We are also a coalition partner of the Coalition for a Just and Equitable California, which is our statewide coalition under which there are several organizations spanning from Sacramento to San Diego, all who have been engaged in this fight for reparations in California for several years now. This slide gives you just a little bit of our work, and it's a very busy slide.
Brother
because
Chad, pardon me to interrupt.
Sure.
Is it possible for you to make that full screen just so we can see it a little bit better?
Absolutely. Hold on. Let me see if I can adjust here.
And again, please pardon me.
Yeah, no, that's not a problem. Is that any better there?
Much better, actually. Thank you.
Okay, absolutely. No, thanks for the call out. I want people to be able to see what we're doing here. So this slide speaks to some of the work that we've been doing over the past 6 years. And it's a busy slide because we've been very busy. So I'm just going to highlight some of the things that we've been doing that you should be aware of. So going back to 2020, Lineage Equity and Advancement Project and our coalition partners in CJEC, we worked with then Assembly Member Dr. Shirley Weber in developing the final language of legislation AB 3121. That legislation created the California State Reparations Task Force. That task force was a 9-member task force that met for 2 years, collected hundreds, if not thousands of hours of expert and community testimony. And then at the end of those 2 years, issued their final report, which was over 1,100 pages and included over 100 recommendations to be implemented by the state legislature. And so then, and I should mention also, CJEC and LEAP, during that 2-year process, we were engaged as what was called an anchor organization doing community outreach for the California Reparations Task Force throughout the state. And in that capacity, we ran over 100 in-community events, raising awareness and trying to bring people into knowledge of what's happening in California, specifically around reparations. So following the 2 years of the task force in 2022, we entered what we called a legislative phase. So that's where the recommendations for the task force went to the California legislature to be turned into bills that would then go to Governor Newsom to be passed into law. We worked closely with State Senator Stephen Bradford on 3 key pieces of legislation that I'll talk about. And all of this is context, again, history, to help you understand where we are today. So in California's legislative session last year, we had 3 bills authored by State Senator Stephen Bradford. Those 3 bills were SB 1403, so SB 1403. That bill would have created what we call the California American Freedmen Affairs Agency, or that state institution that would be responsible for assisting our community in tracing our lineage, validating our ancestry, and validating our eligibility ultimately for reparations. Very important. If you know the history of reparations, any population group that have received compensation from this government has had an institution like this, including Japanese Americans. The second piece of legislation was SB 1331. That bill would have created a fund within the California State Treasury for reparations payments and implementation and programming. So again, we need an account in the state treasury where we can fund what we want to do for our people through reparations, payments, and programming. And the third bill was SB 1050. That bill would have created a process in the California American Freedmen Affairs Agency for descendants of persons who were enslaved in the United States, or as we call them, American freedmen, could pursue claims of property that was taken through racially motivated eminent domain. It would create that process and then allow for either the return of that property or just compensation for the property that was taken. So those 3 bills, all authored and introduced by Stephen Bradford in partnership with Coalition for a Just and Equitable California and Lineage Equity and Advancement Project, moved through the legislature last session and had unanimous support from all members of the California Legislative Black Caucus, all of them signing on as co-sponsors as the bills moved through the committee process. Now, you may have seen some of the media around the end of last year's legislative session in California, where there were protests in Sacramento. I was there, and we were protesting because at that point, the Legislative Black Caucus decided not to send their own bills to the Assembly for a vote. So they literally killed their own bills. Now, why did they do that? Well, we have our suspicions about some of the reasons why, but what we know is in that last week of the legislative session, Governor Newsom submitted amendments to SB 1403, the California American Freedmen Affairs Agency bill, that would have essentially gutted that bill and turned it into a study to be housed in the California State University system, allocating millions of dollars from the state budget to fund that study. Those amendments were rejected rightly by Senator Bradford and by Coalition for a Just and Equitable California and LEAP, and the bills were supposed to move forward as they were written. Unfortunately, we did not get the due process of a floor vote on SB 1403 and SB 1331, even though we had done our vote counts and we knew we had overwhelming support for these pieces of legislation. How did we verify that we had that overwhelming support? Well, SB 1050 actually did go to the floor. SB 1050 being the racially motivated eminent domain bill, and passed the floor of the Assembly 72-0. 72-0, no opposition, and then went on to Governor Newsom's desk, where the governor vetoed that bill based on the fact that it depended on a quote unquote non-existent agency, the same agency that he attempted to gut with his amendments in the last week of the legislative session. So now, I tell you all this because you need that context to understand why we are where we are today. Now, you may have seen that the California Legislative Black Caucus recently announced what they're calling their Road to Repair bill package, moving completely away from the word reparations. Must make note of that. Throughout this package, all of the bills that are in it are stated to be for the benefit of the descendants of American chattel slavery. Every bill. So on the face, that seems like something that we should be able to agree with. But then when you start to dig into the bill package, you see something very nefarious. The very first thing is that all the bills within the Road to Repair package depend on one bill, number SB 437. SB 437 would create a study in the California State University system, allocating $6 million from the state budget to this study. And that study, up until recently, had no start date and still has no end date. So literally what we could cast as being a forever study. Now, if that sounds very familiar to you, it's because that bill, SB 437, again, introduced by Senator Akilah Weber Pearson, that bill is verbatim the amendments that were submitted by Governor Newsom in the final week of last year's California legislative session. So I want to make this very clear. SB 437, the Forever Study, was not written by the California Legislative Black Caucus. It was written by Governor Newsom. Again, Governor Newsom telling us what we will get and what we will not get. Him being the final arbiter of our justice. Unacceptable. So now SB 437 is moving through the California legislature, and we are strongly opposed to this bill. It just recently came out of the Education Committee. And so I'm going to play for you just a quick clip of one of our lead organizers, Chris Larson, who gave testimony in that committee hearing, and he enumerates the many issues with SB 437, and I thought this would be helpful. Can you hear the video?
You may need to just make sure you click the share sound when you share that. You might have to go back out of your share screen and click the share sound.
Okay.
Reshare.
All right, guys. Let me see if I can get this together. And please keep me honest on time as we go here. I want to be respectful. every
Chad is
once.
getting his sound. Just understand that the story that Chad is telling you right now, as I put it in the chat, is a lather, rinse, and repeat story with Democratic legislators. What happens here in Washington State all the time. There'll be a publicly supported bill that will have good sponsorship. People get very excited about it. Oh my God, is it going to pass? Is it going to pass? And it makes it through committee, and everybody's cheering. It made it through committee, and the leadership does not even bring it to the floor for a final vote. They just kill it before it happens all the time. This is not even an unusual story. Did you get your sound, Chad?
I think so. Give me a
All right.
thumbs up if you can hear. Nope.
No.
Okay.
So what I think needs to happen is for you to stop the share entirely.
Okay.
And because
Stop
you're
share.
yeah, exactly. And now when you go to share, there should be a button that says share sound when you do that.
Okay. I am share sound. Okay, there we go. Thank you, Dr. Ware. Learn something new
Yeah.
every day.
Been teaching in in Zoom since quarantine. So yeah.
Okay. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear now. No?
Still don't have it.
No? Well, we might just have to move on. I don't want to take too much time here.
Can you
I say
drop? Is
share.
there a link? Is there a link that people could listen to that if you dropped it in the chat?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'll share that. I will share that
And if you
following
want to give us a
in
synopsis
the
of
chat.
what was being said.
I'll absolutely give you a synopsis here. So let me go back into my presentation. But essentially, Chris enumerated the multiple issues with SB 437, again, introduced by Senator Akilah Weber. Number one, no start date. Until recently, no end date. So literally, this is a study that could go on forever. Number two, SB 437 directly contradicts the recommendations of the California Reparations Task Force. Nowhere did the California Reparations Task Force recommend more study. The recommendations of the California Reparations Task Force were for the state to provide resources for us to do our genealogy in the form of the California American Freedmen Affairs Agency. So again, we are strongly opposed to SB 437. But not only that, it was written by Governor Newsom, and it calls for $6 million to be taken from the budget for what was earmarked to be reparations implementation money for this no end date study. It also then goes further and allows the CSUs to partner with non-disclosed nonprofits in the furtherance of this research study. So we are opposed to SB 437 on multiple levels, and we are asking for community stakeholders and anyone who is aligned with justice for Black Americans here in California and this country to oppose SB 437. And let me see if I can get my screen back up here so we can go back into the presentation. And I'm normally really good at Zoom, y'all. Let's see here.
We're right here with you, brother. It's all good.
Okay, not a problem. I do want to make sure I'm showing you this because it's important to see some of all that is happening. So I'll make this larger here. Okay, can we see the screen?
Yep, perfect.
We're good?
Yep.
Okay. Now I'm going to make this larger. Let me know if that helps. Are we good?
Yep.
Okay. Now, I want to talk about another bill that is also very problematic, and it's a companion bill to SB 437. That bill is SB 518, also authored and introduced by Senator Akilah Weber. 518 would potentially set up what they're calling a bureau for American descendants of chattel slavery. Now, the issue with this bill, number one, is like all the bills in the Road to Repair package is contingent on that forever study completion before being stood up. But it also uses very problematic racialized language in describing the community of eligibility, moving it away from how we crafted and worked with Senator Stephen Bradford on eligibility language, doing things like consulting with legislative and policy analysts and experts. We even spoke to Dean Erwin Chemerinsky, constitutional legal scholar from Berkeley Law. in the process of developing our eligibility language. SB 518 takes it several steps backwards and puts us in a situation where we are now looking at legislation that, quite frankly, is unconstitutional and will trigger Prop 209 here in California, which doesn't allow government allocations or benefits based on race. So SB 518, another bad bill from Senator Akilah Weber that we are demanding a no on. We want to kill SB 437 and SB 518, and we are currently running calls to action on the CJEC website, which is cjec-official.org right now.
And we
Now,
appreciate.
yeah, no, go ahead,
Yeah.
Jason.
And I was just going to say, we appreciate the info, and whatever we can do on the campaign to promote the no votes on these, to get out to our supporters in the state of California, for them to contact their state representatives. We will do that messaging.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. And if I could, we do have some legislation moving that we like, and I do want to speak about that just very quickly, just so everyone here is aware. And thank you, Professor Ware, for already endorsing AB 1315. So we authored AB 1315 in response to what we saw from the California Legislative Black Caucus. And AB 1315 is the evolution of SB 1403 that was introduced by Senator Stephen Bradford. AB 1315, without any study required, without any delay, would establish the California American Freedmen Affairs Agency in state government immediately. No study needed, no $6 million. Well, we need some money, but we're not taking it from the Reparations Implementation Fund from the very beginning, but we avoiding all of the pitfalls of SB 437 and SB 518. So thank you again for your support there. Our second bill, SB 515, is a data disaggregation bill. So in 2022, we were able to get language into Governor Newsom's budget trailer bill that compelled the state of California Department of Human Resources to disaggregate their Black African American category in data collection. So unfortunately, in the state of California and across this nation, Black Americans who are descendants of persons who were enslaved here in the United States are invisible in data. And we understand the importance of data when it comes to policy making. Good data informs good policy. And before SB 189, Section 14, which contained our language, which disaggregated data at the state level, you could not walk into any state office and ask them, how many people here are descendants of persons who were enslaved and emancipated in the United States or American freedmen? We couldn't ask how many of those people were promoted, how many of those people were hired or considered and not offered a job, how many of those people got pay raises, all inequities that we know are impacting our community. But up until SB 189, Section 14, we had no data collection categories to be able to quantify those inequities. And so now SB 515 is the next step of that work, where we are taking this data disaggregation statewide. And so we are asking for support on SB 515 because we need accurate and detailed data sets at every level of government here in California and throughout this nation. And the last thing I will talk about is a current call to action that we have around guaranteed income for American freedmen. So right now, the Human Services Budget Committee is considering a guaranteed income for seniors in California. We are advocating for a specific carve out for American freedmen in this programming, being that our population group is one of the most aggrieved and one of the most in desperate need of something like a guaranteed income program. So we are calling on our legislators, not only in the budget committee, but throughout the California legislature, to carve out a specific portion allocation within this existing guaranteed income program, specifically for American freedmen, Black Americans, the descendants of persons who were enslaved and emancipated in the United States. We have a call to action running on that right now. If you take a screenshot, get that QR code, or go to cjecofficial.org, you can send that call to action in. But we are mobilizing, we are advocating every day, and we are in the middle of a legislative fight right now. That's why I wanted to be here, because we need leadership at the top that listens to the community, and we need legislators in the California State Legislature that listen to the community and don't just bend a knee at the feet of the governor whenever he waves his wand. So thank you again, Professor Ware. Thank you, Jason, and the campaign. Thank you to the Green Party for your continued support of reparations here in California, specifically of LEAP and CJEC. We have a long fight ahead of us, but as my brother Chris always says, we are closer to reparations today than we have ever been in the history of this country. So we have to get engaged and we have to raise awareness. So please do what you hear everyone else here saying. When you leave this session, tell someone about what you heard here. Tell someone about California reparations. Send someone to cjecofficial.org or leapofficial.org so they can get good information from the grassroots organizers who have been doing this now for the better part of the last decade. So thank you again for the invite. I appreciate being here. Thank you for the time.
Amazing work, Chad. And before you close your screen, can you just pop that larger, make it full screen, and so the people who are watching can take that screenshot and get in touch with your organization. All right, there you go, folks. Screenshot that and get in touch with LEAP. This is the good community work that this campaign wants to be supporting. As you saw Butch in the chat repeatedly saying that he's been in support of this legislation multiple times, and we're here to help. So thank you so much, Chad. We really appreciate it. Any final words there, Butch?
Yeah, I mean, all I was going to say was the last time I saw Chad give a presentation on this, I took a friendly amendment to the very last thing that he said, from our brother Chris, who said we've never been closer to reparations, maybe right after the Civil War, when there was, discussion of, 40 acres and a mule, Stevens' proposal. But since then, and I just want to say that the reality is that we could have we could have repaired the damage in any generation. It didn't have to happen in the 1860s. It just takes the political will to do so, to eliminate that generational wealth gap. And just as we stand on land back for indigenous people, restorative justice for the harm, we stand on reparations for what has been done to American freedmen. And we see these struggles as interconnected. The struggle for Palestinian liberation is the struggle for Black liberation. It was Malcolm that said so. It was James Baldwin that said so. It was Kwame Ture that said so. It was Toni Morrison that said so. It was Thomas Sankara that said so. It was Nelson Mandela that said so. So we are here in one united struggle for collective liberation, and we want to appreciate wanted to personally thank you for your contribution to those efforts, and to pass things back to Jason so we can keep the show moving.
Thank you all. I actually have to drop, Professor Ware, but
Yeah,
I appreciate it. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of
We'll
your
be
Sunday.
in touch. We'll be in touch. So bringing this back to, sort of our co-hosts here, the Green Party of Alameda County, we want to, again, appreciate them for sharing this space with them on their Green Sunday. And I'm going to introduce Laura Wells. Laura, you can tell us what the Green Party of Alameda County is doing.
Okay, well, great. One of the wonderful things that we do is that we have these Green Sundays. I don't know when they started. It's been at least a decade where we have the Green Sunday generally on the second Sunday at 5 o'clock. And we've been on Zoom, since the 2020. And we have programs like this. It's wonderful to see. I think I saw 153 people here participating. So we're really thrilled to be able to host things like this and have such marvelous speakers and information. Another thing that the Green Party of Alameda County does that's very important is the Green Voter Guide, which every election it has recommendations of Greg Jan organizes something like 20 or 30 or so people to pull together the recommendations at the local level, the state level, measures and propositions. And one of the things that the Green Party of California, the whole state Green Party, uses this Green Voter Guide that's created here in Alameda County, especially for like state propositions and things like that. So it's helpful across this whole state of, what do we have, 20 million voters or something like that. So Green Sunday, the Green Voter Guides, we publicize, we have listservs and information that we publicize the various local activist events, whether they're specifically Green Party or whether they're other issues and other activist groups. We, endorse them, sometimes co-host them, and publicize them. There's been a lot of work coming out of Alameda County on campaigns, both locally. A lot of people have run. We've had people run for mayor, for city council. We've had some elections in Alameda County, Berkeley City Council, and we've had and in Oakland, we've had some, and rent boards and things like that, as well as I said, city council. And we've been very active on the state level with campaigns as well. We've run a number of the state candidates that have run have come from Alameda County. And I know that the Green Party was on the ballot in California starting in 1992, but we have Greens here that were starting in the 1980s to get the Green Party on the ballot. And so that was 40 years ago that the Greens, and some of those folks are still around. We've also been one of the important things that the Green Party needs to do is stay alive, is sustain itself. And so Green Party of Alameda County and counties around the state have taken part in the state coordinating committee, that body of up to 24 people that from people from across the state, to make sure that we do the things that are necessary to maintain our ballot status, and which we have done since 1992. We've maintained our ballot status here in California. And we've been active at the national level as well, so local, state, and national. As far as mutual aid in the community, that's something that people can become inspired by being in the, by getting our publications, getting our information that we send out, and by attending the meetings, by attending the Green Sundays, finding out about things like the general strike and reparations and a number of other issues, both local, national, and global. And so I'll just keep it short, and with that, I'll put a link in the chat so that you can get to our website. And thank you very much, everybody who's spoken so far, and I'm looking forward to hearing Butch, Ware, and Lauren.
Thank you so much, Laura, and the Green Party of Alameda County. Please get involved with your local Green Party wherever you are. We are doing great work. We have a great platform. We don't want the establishment to continue with the narrative that the Green Party doesn't do anything between elections, because we most certainly do on all fronts, including running candidates, but also helping in our communities. And you can find your local Green Party just by a quick web search, or go to cagreens.org. Is that right, Laura? cagreens.org. If you're in California, or there we go. Ashley's put it in the chat. Thank you, Ashley. So I know that the chat's been blowing up and going wild for our next guest, and I just want to do a quick intro from myself. I first got in touch with Lauren when I was campaign manager for the Stein campaign, and this was before Butch came on board as our VP candidate. And Lauren was very interested, and we had phone conversation, very interested in trying to bring the left candidates together for a public forum where we could talk about how to build solidarity outside of the duopoly. And the phone conversation I had with Lauren, we spoke for about half an hour while I was traveling across country in Indiana. I felt like we hit it off right away in terms of, wow, she really understands, at least from my perspective. And I'm not going to be the arbiter of what's right and wrong in the situation, but for me and where I'm coming from, I was like, wow, Lauren really gets where we are in this situation with fighting fascism and the control of our political system. And so I was really hoping we could make that forum happen. It didn't materialize, but later on in the campaign, after we brought Butch on, we had an opportunity to travel through Southern California, where Lauren was staying, and we got to spend a couple of hours in a wonderful backyard setting, a garden setting, and Jill and Butch were there, and we recorded a podcast. And that podcast, if you haven't listened to it, you can find it on Spotify with Lauren's Attunement podcast. And don't just listen to that one. The whole series is fantastic. I've been listening through them myself. So I will just say from my personal background is 35 years in activism and really waiting for the revolution to happen where we can create a different system and a better and brighter future for all people around the world, not just here in America. This really is as we have some friends from outside of the US in our chat, this is really a global movement to save the future. And Lauren really gets it. So I'm very excited to bring her on right now. Lauren, are you ready? Here we go.
Hello. Wow, what an introduction.
You're amazing, and I'm very, very serious. I've been listening to your other episodes on attunement, and it is so deep and so on point, and your guests are fantastic. So really encourage everybody to listen. I'm going to take a step back, and I'm going to let you and Butch take it from here. It's great to see you.
You too. Thank you so much for the introductions. Very sweet assessment of my character. I'm grateful to be here.
With my introduction. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
No, I just wanted to steal your thunder for one quick second to just underscore the extent to which that attunement podcast, really opened my eyes to the kind of political analyst that you are, and to where your heart is at. So just wanted to say how excited I've been for this conversation. I'll let you take the mic because I know you know what to do with it.
Yes, no, I was just gonna say thank you so much for having me and connecting with me and taking me seriously as a political analyst because I'm definitely aligned with and have always been really aligned with kind of the betterment of the society that I see around me, and the ways in which we can conglomerate power from an artistic perspective as well, because I truly believe, as I know you do as well, Butch, that artists really drive culture in a lot of ways, and the more people we can get together to even just imagine together, as I'm seeing with the beautiful work that everyone who's spoken today is doing tangibly, it's really just about collective awareness and getting with each other to do the thing, to actually do the thing. Because we can talk and ideate and imagine these new worlds, but then how do we mobilize them and how do we make them come to life while we're here,
100%. So can I start things by asking you a question? And it connects with what you just said. I mean, we'll definitely get into kind of the more political mobilization, the movement work. But as you mentioned, like you and I are both united in, the view that culture is what drives liberation. There was a debate, back in the day in the 60s, a lot of the Black radicals would go back and forth. Do we need a cultural revolution or do we need a revolutionary culture? And the answer is both, right? The answer is both. So I just wanted, to hear from you as like such an accomplished artist, and like we've all witnessed what you can do with your voice as an artist and as a performer. I've been particularly pleased to have, to be witness to you like owning your voice as a commentator and as an analyst. But I first want to just to ask you to teach us about what you think the role of an artist and a cultural producer is in these kind of moments of darkness and in struggle, but when something new is being born.
Yeah, I think Nina Simone says it best, that an artist's job is to reflect the times. And I think that while artistry has taken many forms as it's grown and developed, especially in, this late stage capitalist reality that we're all living through, it's really hard, I feel like, for most artists to stick to their ethos of why they make art in the first place, or what that is, or really define it. And when I was 15 and wanting to audition for X Factor, I had this energy of I really want people to know that I can sing. And I really want this, validation that this gift that I've been given is real. And God took me through quite a journey on that front. And then I feel like as an adult, my journey with my artistry is very much exploration of the social condition around me for so many people that I see, and kind of processing the pain of experiencing it, being a part of it, and also not being a part of it at all, considering how how celebrity impacts a human being. You know what I mean? Which is, it puts you in this weird position because culturally, like I said, I feel like artists really do drive a lot more than we allow to be the truth, because whether they're driving people to buy something from Sephora or they're driving people to show up to a meeting about reparations, their energy drives an energy, whether that's in a room or across borders and seas. Like it's possible, and it's tangible, and it happens. So I feel like in my call back to self as an artist, like why I really wanted to do art in the first place and why I do art the way that I do it. It's very deeply to not only heal myself, but for those who can listen, to open them up a little bit more to the possibilities within themselves.
Yeah, I mean, what I heard you saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that it's like this kind of transmutation of this trauma and pain into something that becomes like a source of universal healing and connectedness for people. Yeah, okay, all right, that's what's up.
Exactly that. Exactly
Okay,
that.
well,
That's my intention anyway. I'm a human,
yeah.
so stuff
No,
happens.
I mean, like a message received, loud and clear. So then, I guess my follow up before I let you ask me questions back, because I want to dig down deeper on this one, particularly. I mean, you talked about late stage capitalism. Well, part of that late stage capitalism is the exploitative nature of, entertainment industries that have
Industries in
been.
general, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, industries in general, but that have been, very restrictive, punitive, doing everything that they can to kind of reproduce the status quo. So how has that one like affected your heart, and how has that come on, and how has that affected, like the way that you then, move as an artist and as an activist?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Um, on the front of my heart, it's definitely been repeatedly heartbreaking in many ways, but I feel like heartbreaks sometimes can lead to just the strengthening of the muscle and the capacity of love that we're capable of, and kind of a recommitment to the mission every time that it's heartbreaking, because it's like I'm not the only one that needs more from this. I'm not the only one who is in a position of needing to be invested in because I have something to say that's worth sharing. I know that there's a lot of us for whom it's made very difficult to be the kind of artist that we're born to be, because these systems at play either take that kind of talent when they're very young and naive, and they drain the life force out of them, and then leave them to pick up the pieces on their own, and it's not their fault, and it's just this person's a fuck up. And we watch that happen, and we watch these people deteriorate, or seemingly throw away their potential in lives because of how much trauma they've experienced. And there's very few outlets for the safety net that are supposed to catch these people. Or we see the industry just really mold these lights or whoever is moldable, malleable into what they need to be, like you said, to maintain the status quo. And while that is the easier path, okay, I've been on that path and it's the easier path. There is to me a very deep spiritual element to what I do. And the frequency in itself is such a vital part of the programming of human beings.
Mhm.
And most people, I feel, are programmed every single day, especially in America, to be in contrast to their nature and kind of avoid the things that really get to the bottom of what it means to be alive. And if we don't get too close to that, then we're a lot more obedient, you know? And then if so many of us as artists are obedient, then it tells the average or other person watching and absorbing and admiring that it's okay to be submissively obedient to the likes of fascism, the likes of exploitation, oppression, violence, and silent in the face of these things. When the cultural impact that is possible that we've seen happening with the few artists here and there in all of across the broad spectrum of entertainment, in the acting industry, you know what I'm saying, like all over the entertainment industry, we see the brave souls who know what their purpose is,
Yeah.
who know what their power is, who know how history treats those who stayed silent,
Mhm.
you know. And to me, it's like we do this thing over and over and over again. We incarnate to feel, we incarnate to create, we incarnate to learn what it is to be alive. And in my opinion, there's no greater humanity than wanting to see that in everything and everyone around you, to see the sentience, to see the life, to see the fact that water runs through us and connects us and is us. You know, it's not just a thing that's a commodity, it's a thing that we need to be alive, because it's 70% of what we are, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I
the
mean,
frequencies speak to the water in us. That's what music is, that's what words are, you know. They program us, they keep us satiated in the midst of chaos.
you said that call back to self earlier, you know, and like that's what it is it's like the true art is beauty, and beauty is a call back to our foundational fundamental nature. It takes us back in the Abrahamic tradition to that earth and water. When you said the vibration in the water, I was reminded of this study that I came across, that the prevailing theory now is that the water that is in the Earth's oceans and the water that is in our bodies is actually older than the sun. It was part of the cloud of matter that collapsed and that formed the sun. So that, like, literally that water, we're just stewards for it. It's passing through us, and that, you know, like Green Party standing on like people, planet, peace. Well, like the people and the planet are made of the same stuff. We're sharing that water. You know, we come out of the ground and we go back into it. And in the meantime, like, you know, keeping those high vibrations and reminding people of who they really are, that call back to self is really crucial. I have other questions, but I'll save them for a little bit later down the line in the conversation. But thank you for like blessing us with that you know, that initial opening set of reflections.
Of
Um,
course.
yeah.
Thank you. Is you don't have no more questions, or are
I have
we
plenty
coming
more
back to
questions.
me?
I was gonna, well, when we talked before, you said that you had questions for me, so I wanted to not monopolize the conversation in that way.
Real, real. I think one of the questions that I have for you, which I kind of told you about, but I just I want you to share your story, just kind of why you got into politics from being a history professor, and where the drive comes from, and kind of what your intention is policy wise to move through these times.
I
If you were
mean, you and I sat, you know, in that with Jason and with Dr. Jill and you know, with my wife Clementine, who's on the call. You sat in that beautiful backyard with the trickster that, you know, pulled me into politics in the first place, Dr. Jill. That was her doing. I had no intentions. You can run. There's literally thousands of hours of me community teaching, and speaking in public venues over the last 20 plus years. And until August of 2024, you will not find a single place where I reference running for office.
Right.
Um,
That's why it's like, I know you were very focused on your
yeah.
professor
Well,
career.
and,
LOL. Your
and look,
academic career.
and not just the academic stuff, but like the community teaching, doing the work of organizing. Like for me, the work was in here and in here, and that's where liberation takes place. And I still believe that. It's the reason why we started this gathering with mutual aid and with direct action and with the interventions at the level of community, because I accepted the invitation into electoral politics because I saw an opportunity to utilize the weapon of electoral political organizing to try to stop a genocide. And 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 I literally could not fathom how I would answer, as a person of faith, how I would answer God if God asked me, did I present you with a weapon that you could use to shield your brothers and sisters in humanity from harm, and you refused it?
Mm.
I I don't know how, I don't know how I would live with myself if I turned down an opportunity to pick up a weapon that I thought could help in the affair. And
Yeah.
the way that that's evolved over the course of time, and this has been a relatively short time. We're talking about 7 months, 8 months,
Yeah.
is an understanding that like all of the revolutionary heroes that I've studied and taught about, and transmitted their teachings, they were always guiding, like Malcolm. Malcolm was my pathway to Islam, my introduction into the Black radical tradition. Malcolm did a lot of the work of healing me, right? That
Yeah.
you get through art. Like it helped Malcolm helped put me back together. Well, Malcolm said we are not outnumbered, we are out organized. And in the
And that's
last,
true.
and it's true, we are so much more numerous than they are, and we are stronger, and we are actually better resourced, but we are alienated from our power, exactly, because the chains are inside of us. We have accepted this colonizer's definition of the horizons of possibility that exist within us and that exist within the world. And that goes to another thing that Malcolm said. Malcolm said, never let your enemy tell you how many of you there are. Never let the man that you are against form your opinions for you. So,
Absolutely.
yes, no, go ahead. You seem inspired, so I didn't want to stop you from responding to that.
No, it was, I mean, I completely agree. I completely agree. I think that there's what I saw in the outcome of these elections really was the amount of people power that did not move,
Yeah.
was the amount of people who stayed their asses at home
Yep.
because they didn't feel like there was anything to believe in, who are eligible to vote and who have voting capacity. And
Yep.
I understand in a lot of ways the disillusionment because I'm disillusioned by the duopoly insanely. This is the first time like that I really went hard about it like this year. But I've been disillusioned for a while. Like I knew I didn't want Joe Biden as a president. You know what I mean? Like that man has a disgusting history. And and he really lived up to his fucking legacy. Let me tell you that much.
He did.
Uh,
He put a crown on that thing. Like
put a crown on it, really, truly. It was
yeah.
stolen fucking gems. And as they do. And I don't know. I feel everybody's fear so deeply. And I get it in a lot of ways, especially, new age tech fueled fascism sounds crazy and terrifying. And the rapidness with which a coup can happen and we can have billionaires literally for out of boredom making people's lives miserable, and for the initial reaction to be to censor ourselves and to keep ourselves in this kind of freeze mode, which I understand as well.
Yeah.
There's I have empathy for all of the different ways people are reacting to what's happening. A lot of people are still in denial. A lot of people are still not awake to the reality that we're living in. And the reality is that, you know, these Democrats and Republicans pass power back and forth between each other to solidify exactly what they've ended up solidifying finally, which is this unbridled power to do heinous shit. And the reasons are so disgusting for the way that white supremacy and the continuation of these cycles and the real key holders or you know, bank runners that are out here, they don't have an agenda beyond, they don't have an imagination beyond being the most inflated person to walk into a room, whether that's their ego or their pockets. And, you know, we can continue to submit ourselves to that and say it's just the way things are. And I believe most are content to do so because they've been indoctrinated and programmed to do
Conditioned to do
so.
so.
Exactly.
Conditioned to do so. Yeah,
Exactly.
it's a learned submissiveness.
Yeah. And it's
You know,
backed up by muscle, to be fair. Like all of the establishment, all it's done, especially since 2020, is really arm itself to the teeth, you know, is trillions of dollars in a defense budget is insanity. Like if we really talk about it, if we really talk about how much access we have to resource supposedly,
yeah.
and how little of it we use to invest back into our people, our own people, or people in general, because we go and destroy other people's countries for said resources. And you know, these folks come over here with the intention of, okay, well, if I'm in the mouth of the belly of the beast, at least the beast ain't attacking me, you know. And that's really kind of where it's at this point, is people trying their best to survive outdated systems, extractive systems, oppressive systems that are no longer useful to us, because there's only a certain percentage of people getting anything from these games.
Yeah,
You know,
we're well south of 1% at this point. I mean, it's, you know, we're talking about a
you
fraction of
know,
1% that are people that are really, you know, cashing in on this disgraceful system. I want to go back to something that you said about
you're
that
right.
duopoly, about
1%.
yeah, no, literally, about that duopoly, because that also was part of my response, right? Is that so, you know, Malcolm in 64, the ballad or the bullet, he said, I'm going to go to every door in Harlem and we're going to knock on every door and we're going to register whatever black face is behind that door, not as a Democrat or as a Republican, but independent. And I see that this third party movement and this Green Party movement, that's the fulfillment of that. Because what Malcolm said in that time is that he said that the liberal is Fox. It bears its teeth at you. You think that it's smiling, but you're on the menu.
Yeah.
The conservative is the wolf. It bears its teeth and it snarls so that you have no doubt about where you stand. But he warned that the liberal was the more dangerous of the two, right? And that's the way that I feel. I feel that what Malcolm was saying for the black community, now people are starting to understand that this is for all of us. We are actually caught between two predators who differ only in the modality of the hunt. Go ahead. I see you bursting with it. Go ahead.
No, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. And I feel like it's not even fair to, I feel like those animals have more integrity in their hunt. At least they're trying to get fed. At least
This
they're
is
not,
disrespectful to foxes and wolves for
you
real.
know what I mean? Like, I really feel like, you know, wolves are very loyal. You know, they protect their own. Uh, you know, a fox is just trying to get a meal. They're not trying to take everybody else's meals and make sure everybody else
Now
starves, you know?
these people been had enough to eat. These
Exactly.
people, these people been
And they many of these politicians on both sides of the aisle, and you can tell in the way that they vote on policy, right? And the way that they vote when they're in that room. They're always voting for their own pockets and for insider trading. And in my opinion, money laundering is what the defense budget looks like to me.
How on earth does Nancy Pelosi have a net worth of
It's
$450
the money
million
laundering.
when you're supposed to be representing the working class and oppressed, you know, people party? Like, you know,
Yeah.
wake up.
Yeah, and to me, I mean, if Martha Stewart had to go away for it, I don't know how the hell Nancy ain't been in that jail. I don't under the jail. I don't know.
Uh,
And that's
but
the thing about talking. That's the thing about talking about when I talk to, you know, people who consider themselves quote unquote conservative, because it's ironic that like you can watch the Constitution be ripped to shreds in front of your face and still claim to be a conservative. It doesn't make any sense, you
I
know?
mean, unless the foundational values are white supremacy and capitalism and imperialism,
Unless
unless
it had never had nothing to do with freedom.
unless
Unless
some of
freedom
us had that one when they
for
were
you.
counting us as 3/5 of a human being. Some of us had suspicions about what it was that was to be conserved. But I digress, and I didn't mean to interrupt. Please continue.
No, I mean real talk, you know, and it is what it is, and it's going to continue to be what it is until there's an interruption of some sort. And to me, the people's power is the interruption. The everybody who sat out of an election because they don't feel represented, because they don't feel that their voice has weight. It does have weight.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is the more of us coming together, whether it's, you know, I know this is for the Green Party in particular. I don't associate myself with any party in particular, if I'm being real.
Yep.
I just care more about people who are moving with intention to make this place better for everyone. Especially like I love Jason's call in the beginning, and shout out to the indigenous folks as well, because when we have this conversation about reparations, like indigenous people need to be a part of that conversation.
100%.
Like there's so much to be said about land back and what that would really do for this world, for each other. And I care about people who talk about that, who address that, who aren't afraid of it. I also look for in candidates, or just people in general, those who are willing to hold themselves accountable when they make mistakes, when they find points where they can grow, and do that with grace and with integrity. That's something that I look for in people in my life, you know. And I would hope we've come to a point, I think, in America where the elections are like the Olympics, and it's like this media entertainment driven thing where you're it's like a sports event where you're like, rah, I'm this team, and rah, I'm that team. And I feel like we've just lost any semblance of sanity in these past, you know, few years of like, hey, this is just wrong. This is just wrong. Whether you're religious, whether you are not, whether you are whatever it is that you identify as, you know what I'm saying? It is wrong to be in a position where people don't have access to the things that they need to be alive, and we're calling ourselves the richest country in the world. And this wealth is built off of the back of exploitation and oppression globally. And you know, I saw someone say the other day, I think it was like a Kennedy or something. He was like, you know, our three exports are bombs. It's like three B's, like bombs, oil, barrels of oil, and like some other thing, like three things. And I was like, how sad that the majority of the money that we get to call ourselves rich off of is used to kill people, is made off of death, like quite literally. And you know, and then we're demonized as terrorists for speaking truth to power, which I just, every accusation of confession is just all I've seen over the course of these past 3 years, since, well, 2 years since October. Like the whole situation with Palestine like awoke something in me that I had never, because I used to be a liberal. Like, you know what I mean? Like I was born and raised in Miami. I went to private Catholic school. I didn't know any better. I was just like, the world needs to be a better place, and these are our options. So this is what we have to work with, you know? And I very much was into the idea of reform, and I still am in ways, you know, where obviously we have to do things as we go along.
It steps
But
incrementally, yeah.
yeah, but the incremental changes where these liberals have us in a chokehold, where it's like, yeah, we're gonna get your abortion rights if you vote for us and give us dollars. And it's just like, why didn't you codify that when you had the majority? Like,
because they have no interest in doing so. Kwame Ture,
They're on
said
the same
that
team because they're
they're
on
on
the
the,
same.
they're on the same team. I mean, he said, when the final confrontation comes, of course the liberal will be on the side of the oppressor. And the reality is that it's a group that has been, conditioned to punch down at the oppressed, rather than punching up at the powerful. But we need to also have grace and like learn how to unplug people from those systems. So
Right.
you
Because it
asked me.
is programming.
It is. It's programming, it's conditioning. So that was two things that I wanted to put into the conversation. The first was that media environment and the fact that now these social media platforms are captured by a few billionaires. The legacy media are now captured by a handful of small conglomerates. So you are dealing with a group of people that are being conditioned by corporate propaganda from the cradle to the grave, just getting
Billion
them
dollar propaganda.
all the time. And so it's this incredibly difficult and arduous task to get people unplugged from it. But that's also why I'm running, because I actually have seen it work. So the Muslims, for example, in the 2024 electoral cycle, after voting Democrat 65% for the last 60 years, dropped out of the duopoly altogether and voted 53% for the Steinway ticket, 20% for Kamala, 20% for Trump. And it was because we were able to message around this issue of core importance to that community about ending this genocide. But if we're able to message effectively on land back, if we're able to message effectively on reparations, if we're able to message effectively on immigrant rights, what I think actually is that the grotesque proportion of the exploitation now has a lot of people ready to opt out despite the programming.
Yeah.
The response to Brian Thompson, the United Healthcare, guy getting debrained in downtown Manhattan, tells you that the people are fed up. They have had
They wanted a guillotine. Ben. Like
that's it.
it's just, you know, at this point I feel like everything is just how far can we take it? Everything is a try. Everything is a okay, well, will you actually be mad if I do this little
Yeah, of course. I mean, they're
what if I
testing.
violate human rights over here? Are you gonna really see that? Are you gonna they're just testing their limits. Um,
Frederick Douglass said, demonstrate to power the exact amount of oppression that you will put up with, and you have shown them exactly the amount of oppression that they'll give you. Like whatever we demonstrate to them that we're willing to accept, that's what they're going to do. So we need to organize that resistance to fight back. Go ahead.
Absolutely. Like, especially seeing how this is all playing out. Like, yeah, we have Cory Booker talking for 25 hours. And great, thank you for interrupting fascism for a sec. But also voting
Did he
for
interrupt fascism for a sec? But no, I mean, I'm just, yeah,
no, but that's I'm saying like the
yeah,
impact, right? The
yeah,
impact of what the average American is able to even
correct.
accept is radical or revolutionary. And I love it. They're getting there, and I love it because that's part of the process. The deprogramming is a part of the process. But then we have to connect like what is him voting, taking money from APAC, voting for sending more billions of dollars over to murder children and human beings that are not involved in, trade wars.
Yeah.
Um and profiting off of that. Like where does that connect? If you're talking about freedom, liberation, we are not this. You have to exemplify that. And that's where I see so much of a disconnect, and I feel like a lot of people are missing that disconnect is that first of all, don't believe liars. That's a great place to start. Like if somebody consistently lies with no accountability ever, like only goes
Why you listening to anything they say after that?
why are you still believing a lick of what comes out of that mouth? Not even one syllable should stir you.
Nope.
Number one. Number two is like we we have to stop allowing them to eat our brains, because there's so much information all the time, and it's very easy to kind of get lost in, oh, this bad thing's happening, oh, that bad thing's happening, and this expert's talking about how bad this thing that's happening is happening, and we're overwhelmed right now, you know? And so it's giving, like, just pick a cause, pick something that calls to you, and also let's start organizing outside of these people and of this particular system. Because if we don't vote for them and we don't give them money during their campaign trails, and we don't, you know, give them attention, also is a thing. Because, you know, a lot of these characters thrive off of being celebrities, like Marjorie Taylor Greene or whatever her name is. Like, she auditioned for American Idol. Like, she's a bot. Like, Shadi is a bot. Like, she is a bot, and she's like made her way into so many conversations when she has nothing to offer besides being a weird bully and like believing really ludicrous things, you know, like, and not like, we need to really divest from these types of energies. And the right is always going to make the little celebrities, but like, on this side of things, and that's another thing too, Democrats being called leftist is wild to me.
I mean, it's insanity. You know,
Like, calling Kamala a communist
leftists
is
throw up in their
crazy,
mouth. Leftists
crazy
throw up in
word.
their mouth a little bit every time, you know. Well, because the thing is, the current iteration of the Democrat Party is so far to the right of Ronald Reagan that, you know, if you imagine them as anything
That
other
Kamala
than,
is a communist. That Kamala's a communist.
and it's to the point where, you know, you might as well just go ahead and be a full out socialist, because you're going to get called one even if you're a right wing thug. I mean, so you know, like, where's the fear? So that brings me to the question that you asked that I still ain't answered,
Go
which
ahead.
is which is California. Why, what for, what do you bring? So here's the theory of the case. All right. The theory of the case is that in the national elections in 2024, there were probably about 15 million people that would have normally voted Democrat that could not hold their nose and vote for a genocider. Okay. I think that there's a similar number, around 15 million, who did hold their nose and vote for a white supremacist on the other side, because they hate the Democrats. But if they were given an option and didn't have to choose between just blue criminals and red criminals, right? That if they were given an option that wasn't interested in a performative culture war, a fake staged conflict between two sets of paid actors that are paid by the same corporations, that are paid by the same political action committees, that so those are two significant voter blocks right there. And then the biggest the voter block is the group that did not vote at all, right? 90 million people eligible and would not hold their nose and vote for either of these parties because they do not believe in this fake criminal corporate owned duopoly. The theory of the case is that they tried to rig the California gubernatorial election for the duopoly by having it be one of these top two only advanced. So the June 2nd primary of 2026 is the whole election. You got to finish in those top two, right? But the thing is that there's this window. There are as many registered independents in the state of California as there are registered Republicans. This is one of those places where keeping it just to two candidates is going to backfire on them. If I can bring together a coalition of the people that have been left out of this process altogether, and those people that have been disaffected, and keep in mind that in the last two sets of polls that came out before the 2024 election, we were pulling as many voters from Team Red as we were pulling from Team Blue. Because the thing is, people have actually had enough. Like, that when you pierce the surface, you realize that people, you know, yeah, they've been conditioned to be in this echo chamber of this nonsense. But like, if you actually pierce that veneer and touch the human being that is beneath it, that's what happened with the Brian Thompson thing. is that you touch people's actual pain, that their mama couldn't get cancer treatment, that they had to make life or death decisions. You start touching where people's humanity is actually being wounded by this corporate exploitation and extraction. And on both sides of the aisles, and in everybody who would never vote for either Democrats or Republicans, there is an opening for politicians who are not for sale.
Yeah.
And if they put the sun in my right hand and the moon in my left, I would not, speak a false word, nor would I sell out to people. And they're going to hear that. That's my case.
Yeah. It's a strong moral standard to hold yourself to, for sure. But that's what we need, essentially, people who are willing to have integrity, be honorable, leaders. Like I think that's the most important thing that we're missing in the landscape that we're being presented with as a future. My generation, the generations below me, there's not a lot to be hopeful for, according to what we're seeing.
Mhm.
And these kids are on social media and just absorbing all of this doom messaging, of just like, sorry, there's nothing you can do about it. We're going to imprison all of you. We're going to, whether you have legal status or not, you will be silenced. Like, you will be deported, even if I don't like your opinion. Fucking Marco Rubio's policy approach is disgusting. I'm so ashamed.
And Bernie Sanders confirmed him. Don't forget. I mean,
I know.
the ones
Trust
that are
me, I know.
the ones that are
That was
playing
that was
opposition
something that I was
politicians.
really, really disappointed in Bernie about. And Bernie, I think, has done a really solid job throughout his career to actually have integrity, I think, for the most part. And I think that these past few years have been a whirlwind because so much has come to the surface that so many weren't ready to deal with, and they're used to playing politics a certain way. And what I think the Democrats really misread deeply was how far gone the younger generations are and how many people are absolutely not down for the veneers anymore. Like there's no smiling in my face, lying to me about what you're going to do when you're not going to do it, and you never do it, and you haven't done it, and you continue to build infrastructure for the right wing to continue to grow in power. And when I say power, like, their power comes from fear, their power comes from control. Those aren't real powers. Those aren't powers that are infused with God, like those.
It's the dark side of the force. There's no real
Exactly.
strength there. Yeah.
Exactly. And we all know how they get to their positions, and what kind of families you have to be born into, what kind of things are set up way in advance for who becomes what, for us to think we have a choice in whoever's being presented to us.
Mhm.
And I think that the veneer is so far removed at this point, and they're still playing their little game and thinking that they can manipulate. And for the most part, they're right, but statistically, they're wrong.
Yeah.
And the majority of people, like the actual majority, like a democracy, quote unquote, is supposed to function, aren't even voting.
Yeah.
Aren't even voting, aren't even wasting their breath, because they know that no matter who's in power, they're going to have to continue to suffer the whims of billionaires. And it's high time that we imagine ourselves a new pool of leadership, that we are brave enough, that we pull from our courage to actualize new realities for ourselves, because no one's going to do it for us. And I think everyone's waiting for the proverbial superhero to come in and save the day. And while over the course of history we have great leaders like Malcolm X and so many other wonderful leaders that you've mentioned, and philosophers, they're all in amalgamation. All of them together are what make and inform these politics. Like, everyone together bringing their opinion, bringing their experience, bringing their truths into a space where that's what's going to be honored and that's what's going to be built off of and that's what's going to be remedied. Listening to the people, that's how we make a better reality for ourselves. It's not by submitting our power into, you know, billionaire technocrats that could give a single flying fuck about what happens to the children of tomorrow. You know, like they don't care about their own kids, you know, like why would they care about yours?
I mean, you know, looking at the time and wanting, you know, to give folks the chance to interact after this, I'll take one, you know, kind of last closing, you know, piece, because you brought me back to where I started. So I agree with you that we are who we've been waiting for. That liberation comes from the people. It doesn't come from leadership. But what leadership does is it gives people inspiration and helps move them in the direction that brings people together in solidarity so that they find the collective fortitude to resist. They've
Yeah.
got us isolated and broken up. And that's
And
this
insecure.
terrified, you know, and they're governing through fear. But the thing is that I think that the reason why the fear mongering is so intense, I think the reason why the repression is so heavy is because empire is in its death throes. It is seized by
Like,
the it's the death rattle. It's the death rattle. It's the
it's
extinction burst.
Goliath. It's Goliath's descent.
It's the extinction burst. So they're flailing in every direction, trying to
Real.
forestall. Did I freeze? Yeah, trying to forestall an inevitable collapse. Trying to forestall an inevitable collapse. So I think that this distinction that we've tried to make this evening is that the reason why I'm running and the reason why I'm running in the way that I'm running, trying to bring together the mobilization that's already present on the ground and channel that into organization. That goes back to that saying of Kwame Ture: revolutionaries don't just mobilize around issues, revolutionaries organize against systems. That the role that I'm going to try to play is to help people transform their mobilization into organization that effectively resists systems. And that means putting a political party actually in the service of the people rather than in the service of the corporations. And I am betting, and you know, look, we understand the history of Black, you know, radical political figures in this country. I am betting my life that we are ready for this. I'm betting my life that your generation does not want to live a life of eternal bondage, going from company-owned housing to the factory to the company store and never owning anything and being fully owned. I fully believe that y'all are built different and are ready to fight if somebody says, "Come on, let's fight." And here's how we're going to do it. And these are our soldiers and these are our teammates. And that I'm not asking, you know, for your, you know, ideological commitments. Some of y'all are going to be socialists and some are going to be Marxists and some are going to be Muslims. And I don't care, because everybody deserves freedom. Everybody deserves to have their basic human dignity acknowledged by their government. Everybody deserves to have their rights to be protected from oppression and discrimination and violence. That has to be sacrosanct. And I am betting that the American people, writ large, all of us, right, actually want a government that will work for all of us for the first time, not making America great again. It was never great for people that look like me. It was never great for my Seminole ancestors either, right? But that we actually have the opportunity, if we divest from these criminal corporate systems, to take all of these resources that have been used to deal death across the planet at an impossible scale, that we can use those resources to sow life and to harvest it, to reap it, so that you and I, while we're still here, that we see it with our eye, that we hold it with our hand, that we taste it with our tongue, and that we pass it on to the next generation. I am betting that the people are ready. And
Yeah.
even if they ain't, I'm going down fighting one way or the other.
Okay, because I'm not gonna be taken to jail by no robot. No, thank you. I'm
Taking
okay.
the jail by a robot
Listen,
dog. Yeah, no, word, that's
listen.
real.
I feel like Octavia really, really painted us a very clear picture of our future. And too much, too much of what she wrote. I'm like, wow, girl, you really time traveled. And it's kind of crazy. But she also gave us a blueprint, of what it means to be in community and
Yeah.
and how to build something out of nothing and how to see a spark in your neighbor and build with your neighbor, even if it's not the same as your spark, even if it's a different kind of spark, even if it's a different kind of skill, even if it's a different kind of perspective. Um, Everyone has something to offer as long as what they're offering doesn't take from anyone else, and in being those like Lego building blocks with one another, we become this impenetrable force. And I think in a lot of ways, like I think this on the individual level, a lot of us are scared of our own power because being powerful in an integritous way has proven over the course of history to be met with some very severe consequences, and whether that's as a woman being empowered to speak your truth or to, veer from the societal status quo. And that's my personal journey. But like, it's never been fun. It's never been, the easy thing to do, but it is the most gratifying for your soul in the long run because you're helping to sow a new earth. You're helping to remedy all of the innocent blood that's been spilled in the name of, some specific families just continuing to get more and more wealthy. Like that's literally the core of all of colonialism. And and it's not like it's the oldest thing that ever existed either. We talk about conquering and stuff as if it's the only way that we know how to be, but I feel like we've evolved a lot. And I think we're at the point where we have the capacity and the monopoly over resources at this point to really not have to be in competition at all times and to really not have to be working to disenfranchise each other. And I mean this on a global level as well, with like the trade wars that are going on. It's like it's unnecessary greed continuing to shape our world, and it leads to destruction that is unnecessary. And so I just see us all coming together as like the light in contrast to the destruction that's really here to sow the seeds of the new realities that will come, hopefully as I age, but if not, in my children's children's lifetime. Yeah.
If I can step into the conversation here, it's really been wonderful to hear this engagement. But to kind of bring it full circle to Indigenous peoples, in a way, we need to go back to the roots of how human society developed,
Absolutely.
and Aboriginal cultures all across the world. If you look at the way they have lived their lives and developed their societies and fought colonialism from the start, that's really how we need to get back into attunement with what it means to be human and be in symbiosis with our environment, with other cultures. It's really, I read a book a couple of years ago. It was suggested to me by an Australian Aboriginal author. His name is Tyson Yunkaporta, and it's called Sand Talk. And he talked about Australian, how modern society is really self-destructing and killing itself. And if we don't get back to those Aboriginal indigenous roots, that we are on a path to complete annihilation for the entire human
Yeah.
species.
Which is crazy. Which is
It is.
crazy. Like, no,
And
I'm not
we
down.
know
Are
this.
you
And we
guys
know
down?
this.
Wow.
There was a perspective on the Trump administration that, because what's happening is so cartoonish. I mean, it's horrifying, but it's
It's
also cartoonish, right? It's complete clownery. And this guy says, I'll send you the IG link, Lauren, on this, because what this guy says is really amazing. He said, Trump is here to convince you, and this is something Butch says, that we are in the strip it down and sell it for parts stage of capitalism, and it's inevitable regardless of who was going to win the election. It's inevitable that we are here. What Trump is actually here for is to convince the American people that that's a good thing. He's a
Or that it's their
salesman,
fault.
right? He's a salesman. He is here to convince people that selling things off for parts and billionaires acquiring more and other people being subjected to less, that's a good thing. I don't think people are going to buy it. I think it's a long shot for the billionaire class to try and save their own necks. So I don't think it's going to work. But if you put it in that context, the way this guy presented it was like, wow. And then the last thing I want to say is there's an attorney out there, Eric Lee, who I believe is representing Luigi Mangione, and you can find his stuff on Twitter. He had a really great statement that sort of puts together where we are right now. He says people, and this is where I worry about the Bernie AOC Pelosi little oligarchy tour right now. What is the purpose? What is the action item? What is it that they are trying to get people to do? Because everything I have seen and heard about it, there isn't a now go do this thing to organize your community. So it's left hanging there. And what are people thinking? So that's why we call it somewhat of a sheepdogging tour, right? These people are in the end trying to herd people who might be thinking about breaking from the Democratic Party, get them all excited. Yeah, we're really gonna fight the oligarchy this time. You can trust us if you just vote for Democrats.
The amount of text messages that I've gotten that are like, we have an ad that we're gonna run. If you give us $5 to $10, I'm like, I literally
send us
texted one back the
$5.
other day. I literally texted one back the other day. I was like, girl, isn't it your job? Why do you need my money? Isn't that your job?
I don't think Cory Booker spoke for 25
Don't
hours.
you already take my money? Like,
Yeah.
I mean,
Cory Booker spoke for 25 hours and immediately said, "Now give me $5."
if I may, so listen, we all have, love for Bernie at different levels and at different points in our life, but 2016, excite the progressives, hand them off to Hillary. 2020, excite the progressives, hand them off to Joe Biden.
which is like
2024, excite the progressives, hand them off to Kamala. How many times do you need to see the same performance before you understand what it is that you're witnessing? This is not accidental. It is structural. And that is the job of the quote unquote progressive wing of the Democratic Party. Their job is to keep third party power from forming. And that's the reason why in this particular moment, we need to be absolutely serious about building alternative political power. Everybody knows that it's needed. 70% of independents say that the two parties do such a poor job, we need a third party. 53% of registered Democrats, 48% of registered Republicans. Everyone knows that this is what's required. But as Lauren pointed to earlier, we've been conditioned to accept things as they are rather than to step out and build. So that's what we're here to do tonight.
Look to the Eric Lee, this attorney, and he said the real defining moment in this struggle right now, and this is why I brought the Bernie AOC oligarchy tour into it, is that people should not be looking to the political elites for direction because they are going to steer you wrong. We need to be looking to each other for support and solidarity. That is going to be the defining, action as to whether we're going to make it out of this. So that's what we're all here for right now, building community solidarity. And I do want to say to the people watching right now, people in the chat, the running a political campaign, it does take resources. I do want to make a pitch for fundraising. I know there's a lot of people who are out of the country. You cannot donate to the campaign if you are not a U.S. citizen. We appreciate the good feelings and the good wishes very much, but don't send us money. However, if you do know people who are U.S. citizens and you want to inspire them to turn their eyes towards this campaign, please do so. butchwareforgov.org. So if somebody can drop Arwa or Clem, if you can drop the donate link in the chat, and just an appeal to donations and to volunteers. We have a fantastic volunteer corps growing right now, not just in California, but all across the country. If you've got a skill set that you want to lend to this campaign to help grow our movement, we will be more than grateful to put you to work for us. So volunteers, donations, and Butch, I'll let you have the final word. And once more, thanks to the General Strike US, thanks to Chad Brown from LEAP, and thanks to the Green Party of Alameda County for joining us in this conversation. And thank you so much, Lauren. It's been a pleasure.
Pleasure. Thank you so much for
Always a
having me.
pleasure to get the chance to talk things through and chop it up with Lauren. What I'll say is, especially for those of you who have questions about the role of electoral politics in the liberation movement, you're not alone. I have those same questions. But here's what my study of successful revolutionary movements as an academic has taught me is that at the core of every one of the successful modern revolutionary movements, there's political party organizing. And the reason for that is that what we have been witnessing is we saw mass mobilization after the Floyd murder that led to the biggest manifestations against police brutality that we've witnessed. This was mass mobilization. First time I ever saw more white kids at an anti-police brutality protest than black kids in my entire life. But mobilization around the issue of police brutality, rather than organizing against the system that produced it, has led to more police killing more people in every year since George Floyd was choked out. We have been protesting for 19 months, 20 months, 16 months of blue genocide, 4 months of red genocide. And it's not that protests and marches are nothing. They're important. We find important nourishment in it, but it is mobilization. And the system is not responding simply to mobilization. The system is going to respond to organized resistance. It's going to respond to power. That's going to come from inside of electoral politics and outside of it. That's what the strike actions are for. That's what the targeted interventions for restorative justice are for. But that's also what power building inside a party is for. We've been going out for protests to abolish ICE, to protect immigrant rights. But again, mobilization around the issue rather than collective organizing against the system that is producing all of these inequalities. The same system is producing violence against our brothers and sisters in Palestine. It's producing repressive violence to silence anyone who will speak against it. The same ICE mechanism is being utilized to deport and harass and terrorize immigrant communities, using the same Gestapo police force tactics that have been used to choke out Black communities for generations. We need to organize for power. Mobilization is great, but it is not enough. And so that means if you don't have a dime in your account, volunteer for the campaign, because we will channel that energy towards organizing for effective resistance. I am not playing with these people. I am trying to fight to establish an actual independent, not corporate owned party. So if you are in position to donate, resources are always helpful, but the most valuable resource that any human being can contribute to a struggle is themselves. We have no more valuable instrument to negotiate liberation in this world than the whole of ourselves. Blessed you in Senegal, in the Wolof language where I lived, Senegal for many years. They say "nit nit agarabam," which means people are people's medicine. So hit donate if you can, but if you can't, and even if you can hit donate, volunteer. Because what you are going to bring in terms of your passion, your commitment, your motivation, your heart, the causes that you're committed to, that is the true currency that spends best in a liberation movement. That is where we are going to get free through building new forms of community, solidarity, and resistance. So that's my last call. Thanks again, Ms. Lauren. Hope we can do this again real soon. And Alameda Greens have to get out at 6:59.
Yes,
and
same. I gotta go. I'm
my
like,
child care
2 hours.
turns back into a pumpkin. Turns from a carrot to a pumpkin in 2 minutes also. Warmest greetings to everybody that was in the gathering. Appreciate you all. And we'll stay connected.
Bye, y'all.
All right, peace.